absolutely thrilled to say that Gordon Brown is with us this morning, old sparring partner from when you used to be Prime Minister.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. I will ask you a couple of things about modern day politics coming up. Before that, tell us about the multi-bank. We have something in common.
Yeah, you've heard of food banks, but what about a food bank, a bedding bank, a furnishings bank, a hygiene bank, a baby bank, all rolled into one? And so you can meet the holistic needs of families who are in difficulty. And that's what we created, first of all, in Scotland, in Fife, with the help of Amazon and local companies like Purvis. So we had small companies and big companies helping us. And now we have one led by people locally in Wigan, because they're doing something very similar, and they're doing it incredibly well. And they're helping thousands of families in the Greater Manchester area. So
it's called the Brick, isn't it?
It's called the Brick when it's in Wigan. It's called the Big House when it's in Scotland, built on the Cottage Family Centre. So you've got local charities who are coordinating this. They get a warehouse. They get goods from companies that are surplus or unwanted, or in some cases they buy some of the goods. And through a referral system from social workers, teachers, schools, and doctors and health visitors, you get the goods to the people who need them. And what we're finding is that while there is some provision for food with food banks, people don't have bedding to keep themselves warm, like duvets. They can't afford the toiletries, basic things like soap and shampoo and toothpaste. They fall through the net if you're struggling to pay for food. And that's what the Brick has been able to do in Wigan, and that's what we're trying to do in Scotland, and we want to expand it to the whole of the United Kingdom.
We took the opportunity to speak to Keely Dalfin, who is the CEO of the Wigan
Great
Brick
CEO,
Brick.
she's doing brilliantly.
Yeah,
brilliantly.
Here she is.
We've got a real passion in the Brick that we don't just give things to people and expect all their problems to go away. It's about restoring people and restoring hope, really, and making people, understand that they are worthy and that they can have aspirations and try and increase social mobility. All those things are really important.
And we actually took the programme on the road and went to look at...
And you know Wigan very well.
I do, born and bred.
And we're very proud that Wigan actually is the centre for what we're doing in the Northwest.
Why did you choose Wigan? This was
because we got a great charity there, the Brick. And Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, has been supportive. The local organisations and charities have been supported. Brick is originally a homeless charity and doing a huge amount of work. But Keely is such a good organiser, and the support is there from local businesses that it's really taken off. And now it's going to move to Wales and later to other parts of the country.
How did you get Amazon involved?
Amazon had a warehouse in my old constituency in Fife. And I said to them, look, you're throwing out surplus goods. Why don't you give us to us? Because we can get them to families. And so they've given us thousands of goods and actually some goods to sell so that we can pay for our staffing as well. But we've got now about 90 other companies in one way or another involved. So it's not just Amazon, it's a whole range of companies. And it started something that's quite big, which is a partnership between companies and charities to provide goods that each cannot do on their own, because the companies have the goods that people need, but the charities know the people who need them.
What do you say to politicians who say that using food banks, using multi-banks is a lifestyle choice?
We want to abolish food banks in the long run. We don't want to have to need them. But what we have to do is deal with the here and now. Look, I'm seeing poverty I never thought I would see in my lifetime again. I grew up in a mining town, which is a textile town producing linoleum, lots of slum housing, lots of real problems. And I thought that kind of poverty had gone, but it's back now. And you've got 1 million children last night who were not sleeping in a bed of their own. They were either sleeping on the floor or sleeping on a settee or a couch or something. You've got 2 million families that don't have cookers and washing machines, and they can't actually fend for their children in the way they want to do. There's a study out on hygiene. 4 million people can't afford the hygiene goods. So the kids are not cleaning their teeth because they can't afford the toothpaste, and the soap is not being bought because it falls off the end of the shop when you have to buy the food, and the food is costing more. And all these things have gone up in price, which means that 2024 could be a worse year for poverty than 2023 or 2022. We know what happened in 2022 with COVID, and you had energy price rises, but now we've got price rises all round. We've got emergency support running out. If people had savings, they don't have them anymore. And charities are finding it difficult because people can't afford to give to charities in the way that they used to in the past. So I would say that 2024 is a bigger test for us to try and help people who are in need. And I think we've got to do far more.
And do you think that is down to the political choices that this government has taken?
Well, undoubtedly, universal credit needs to be looked at. I mean, it's not working. The truth is that there are so many aspects of it that are problematical that there needs to be a root and branch review of universal credit. And the single person's universal credit is a lower share of average earnings than at any point since the social security system has started. So the government has got a responsibility and they've got to look at it. But I, as someone who was a constituency MP, you can't leave families in need without giving them help. And that's why I'm appealing to companies who've got surplus goods to give us them. And I'm appealing, obviously, to the public to be more, if they can, to do more to help us get stuff to families who really need it most.
And does that stretch to migrants as well who find themselves?
If there are, Keeley would say, from Wigan, if there are families who are homeless for whatever reason, then you want to be of help to them. I think one of the problems that's arising is because migrants are being accepted into this country as legitimate asylum seekers. They've been in temporary accommodation while their appeal has been taken, and then they're thrown out of the temporary accommodation. So something has got to be done to help people in need. And I'm particularly worried about children. You know, in Wigan, when we started the MULTIBANK in Wigan, the first day it started, a father came in with his 16-year-old son and said, I can no longer afford to keep him, and walked out. And the son was in absolute floods of tears. He was being deserted by his own father. And this is something that is going on at the moment, that it's not sometimes because of neglect or domestic violence that families are putting their children into care. It's because they just can't afford to keep their children. Now, that's something that we really should do something about, because the cost of keeping a child in care is so high, but also is so unfair that that kid was being deserted by his father simply because his father didn't have enough money.
It would be remiss of me while I have you here not to ask you a couple of questions with your political
I'm a retired
brain.
politician. I'm too old to be a British politician.
I don't think you're ever a retired
I'm
politician.
too young to be an American politician.
That's one of the questions.
You know.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. I mean, who would have thought? I don't know if you saw my reaction when Lord Cameron came back down Downing Street and became the Foreign Secretary. If you got the call, do you see it as your public duty?
I don't expect to get the call, and I'm not thinking about it that way. If Keir Starmer wants advice from me, I'm always there to give it. But, he's his own man. He's doing his own thing in his own way and doing it very well. So, a younger generation of people are going to come through.
One of the big offices of state if it was offered?
I don't think that's going to happen. And
what if it was?
I don't think so.
What if it was?
I'm not the future. Other people are the future.
Okay,
I will do what I can to help in all the things I really care about. But I am really worried about the state of poverty in Britain at the moment, and I really want people to focus on it, because you don't hear any government minister ever talking about poverty or about universal credit and how it needs to be reformed. And it's their duty to do something about it, because in their midst and under their watch, far more children, more than 4 million children in this country are in poverty.
What would you do about the Rwanda policy? I remember the speech when you said British jobs for British workers.
What about Rwanda? Is it going to work? I mean, I think Yvette Cooper has put the question right directly. I mean, all this money's been spent, all these arrangements, this bill through the House of Commons, but nobody thinks that very soon one person is going to be sent to Rwanda. And if it's not working, why is all this money being spent on the policy? And if Rwanda is now saying that they might not actually go ahead with it because it's been so slow and it's not working well and everything else, then, let's concentrate on managing the system here far better, and we've got to manage it far better.
Do you think it's a waste of money?
It looks like it's been a waste of money so far, doesn't it?
240 million quid.
Yeah, there's a lot of waste of money. Look, I was the Chancellor for 10 years.
I know.
And I was always obsessed about not wasting money. And I'm a Scot, as you know, and we've got a reputation for being worried about money. And, I see the PPE scandal with the waste of money on buying all these equipment that was never used, Michelle Bowen and all that sort of stuff. And now I see money being spent in Rwanda without any return at all. So I think the Chancellor's really got to think about the use of money and how it's better used.
Talk to me about the Post Office briefly, if you would. Did you see Alan Bates versus the Post Office?
No, I haven't seen it. I've been away doing work for the United Nations.
But of course you know the story, because it was when you were...
No, it wasn't when I was Chancellor. To be fair, the cases have arisen in the last few years.
But the Horizon IT scandal was developing while you...
Yeah, but hold on. There's a difference between the award of the contract and the value for money in it and everything else, and the misuse and the way it was implemented. And all the evidence that we've seen has come out after 2010. I've got to be honest, I was not involved in the Horizon contract. Obviously, the Treasury would look at value for money, but it wasn't me that was personally involved in that. But I do feel for all those people who feel, rightly so, that they were hard done by the misuse of a system to charge them and find them guilty. And I do feel that the level of compensation is probably insufficient, given they've had both the trauma and all the legal expenses of fighting that. And I think the government will have to come back to this, because what we're finding out now is that so many things went wrong during that period of implementation.
Do you think successive governments were hoodwinked by the Post Office? Do you think successive governments were hoodwinked by the Post Office?
Well, clearly the ministers were not told the truth about what was happening. And so whether it's because they didn't ask the right questions, which is what the inquiry is going to look at, or whether they were completely blindsided by being given wrong information is something that the inquiry is going to look at. But clearly, if you're the minister, if you're responsible, you've got to ask the right questions. And if you don't ask the right questions, you may not get the right answers. But it is also the case that people are alleging that the Post Office covered up within the Post Office and went completely straight with the ministers.
May I ask you about an old mucker of both of ours, Alistair Darling? He's a sad loss.
A sad loss, and I was at his funeral only a few weeks ago when very many people were paying tribute to his calmness and his composure during crisis, and the fact that he had to deal with two crises, because I worked with him during the global financial crisis, but I also worked with him on the Scottish referendum. And, you know, there's, in the lifetime of a politician, particularly someone who's not Prime Minister, he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, you maybe have one crisis you have to deal with. He had to deal with two. And I think he showed integrity. I think he showed composure. He was always calm, and I think he deserves the respect that was shown at the point at which he tragically died, because it was a real shock to all of us, because while I knew he was suffering from cancer, we thought he was actually making progress.
He had been a little bit better that week, I believe, and then sadly he went downhill very quickly. Did he save the economy with your help?
I don't want to get into what happened in the past, but I do think that what happened in 2009 could have been a far worse disaster. There was a recession, and it was about to become a depression. And if we hadn't acted with the rest of the world, and if we hadn't nationalised the banks that were the problematical banks, then people would have experienced a loss of savings, but also they would have not been able to get money through the cash machine. So we took very quick and rapid action, both nationally and internationally. And I'm not trying to overclaim what we did, but I don't think that people can claim that we didn't take action quickly to deal with what was a crisis. And we got the economy back to growth pretty quickly.
And if Keir Starmer does become Prime Minister whenever the general election is, what does he need to do? First of all, first week in power, to try to help youngsters who are living in poverty.
I think that Keir is someone who feels very strongly about these issues from his own background and growing up. He understands what poverty does to people, and, for example, unemployment, which I think he knows directly about from his own family. I think he'll want to send a message to the country that, while problems will take time to solve, because there is a backlog of low growth, low productivity, all the things that people have been talking about the state of the economy, that he'll want to send a message that we've got to unite as a country. I think what's happening at the moment is there are so many divisions across this country. We're not united. We're not in this together. I think he'll send the message that he'll want to bring the whole country together, and that includes Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and England together, as well as bring everybody from the different communities together to take action to deal with some of these problems.
And if he rings day 2 and says, "Hello, Lord Brown of Fife, it's Keir Starmer here. Will you come and be a minister without portfolio for me? Would you serve?"
There's no Lord Brown. As you know, I'm not in the House of Lords. And
no, but he could make you a Lord.
I've got no intention of either wanting to be in the House of Lords or being in the House of Lords.
OK. I'm glad you took the opportunity to be with us this morning. It's great to see you. Thank you.
Well, come to Wigan and see with me. Perhaps we'll go together and look at the progress of the multi-banks.
It's a deal. Let's do it.
Let's
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.